So I interviewed SLO County Parks Director of Parks and Golf Administration, Budget Endowment, Nick Franco. He was involved in the 2000 phased acquisition in the Irish Hills, just shown on the map on the slide, which successfully acquired the Andre properties and the Nature Conservancy properties shown in orange and yellow on the map. Phase 2 included the acquisition of the Heritage Preserve and Avila Ranch, which contains Wild Cherry Canyon. Phase 2 was unsuccessful in that it was buried in the political process during a public works meeting in Sacramento. To my knowledge, the Heritage Preserve has since been acquired under the state park system. The Wild Cherry Canyon region still belongs to Eureka Energy, which is a subsidiary of PG&E. In our interview, Nick stressed the importance of creating strong coalitions across stakeholders in successfully acquiring and conserving the land. Mentioned entities included the Land Conservancy of SLO, the Nature Conservancy, Port San Luis, and the Northern Chumash. Tied to robust coalition formation, attaining adequate funds for land acquisition tends to be the primary roadblock. The most promising source of funding comes from federal bonds, such as the Parks and Water Bond Act of 2018, also known as Prop 68, in addition to those commonly coming from many conservancy organizations. As for the conservation of the lands, much of the Diablo Canyon region is far too rugged for any form of development and ought to be predominantly classified as a natural preserve, while Wild Cherry Canyon, given its recreational value relative to most of the Diablo Canyon region, could be classified as a state park or a state recreation area. So I already mentioned it briefly. Wild Cherry Canyon is on the southern coastal region of the Diablo Canyon land and has been subject to considerable press and public attention. The current leaseholders of the property are HomeFed, which is a land development company that is a subsidiary to the New York-based Jefferies Financial Group. HomeFed has also received its share of press when in 2018, emails discussing a potential 15,000 home development were leaked to the public. The development was considerably larger than development proposed in 2015, which outlined a 1,000 to 1,500 home development on 240 of the 2,355 acres, with the remainder of the land being left for conservation and public access. According to their website, they pretty much just state that numerous options are under consideration. Overall, their current stance on the Wild Cherry Canyon lands are ambiguous. For example, in the same year that the emails leaked, a letter from the Diablo Canyon Decommissioning Engagement Panel to the California Public Utilities Commission stated that HomeFed was considering a conservation sale and was in informal discussions with the Wildlands Conservancy. PG&E was unable to join in on these discussions due to a California Public Utilities Commission order that PG&E cannot take any action with respect to any of the lands and facilities until a public stakeholder process is conducted. The order is meant to prevent undesired development and to promote conservation. In the case of this situation, however, it may be preventing conservation from happening more quickly.
So we also decided to interview several informed members of our community, Bruce and Eric, who are also present at this meeting. Bruce works as a regulatory compliance engineer, like he introduced himself as working, and part of his job involves working on the decarbonization plan for the state of California. He's also involved with the SLO Climate Coalition and has played a key role in the creation of the Pismo Preserve. Bruce is a strong advocate for using the existing grid infrastructure at Diablo for offshore wind resources. Offshore wind is more consistent than solar in that it produces electricity day and night. Bruce also sees the potential for a multi-use recreation area as well as a series of trail systems. He strongly supports returning the lands to Chumash ownership. However, he says that PG&E should be held liable for the storage of the nuclear waste indefinitely. Eric is a frequent attendee and public commenter at meetings all over SLO County, and he would love to see the restoration of marine and terrestrial ecosystems and the creation of a nature preserve. He also strongly supports returning the land to the Chumash and creating a Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. Like many others, Eric advocates for a conservation easement to accompany any land transfers. In regards to nuclear waste, he feels that radioactive waste should be moved off-site if there is a safe way to transport the spent fuel to a safe place for long-term isolation from the rest of the environment. He shares his anticipation for a strong sequel review in order to better inform himself and others.
Our final deliverables include several infographics to amass our research, including a connectivity map detailing the goals of different stakeholders and what they share in common with other groups, a stylized map showing future land use as proposed by different stakeholders, and an aerial map showing the same information. And finally, a research bank to relate the infographics to the stakeholders group contact information for eventual transformation into a website or an interactive map in the future. These will all be released publicly and to the involved groups to promote transparency and engagement within the community regarding the future use of this major section of land for generations to come. Here we have the stylized map we created to show the many different ideas stakeholders are proposing as they see fit to use Diablo Canyon for after decommissioning. This is more of a theoretical and not to scale map. These are just some of the proposed uses as mentioned before in the previous slides, including the offshore wind farms, restoring marine and terrestrial ecosystems, returning land to the Chumash tribe, and implementing sustainable agriculture practices. Some stakeholders advocated for remaining nuclear and allowing safe on-site waste storage, while others disagreed and proposed to discontinue the usage of the plant. Near the coast, HomeFed proposed housing, while many other stakeholders have said the coast should be conserved for recreation and land conservation. Ellia will now go into more detail regarding the proposed land distribution.
Yes, so here is a aerial map infographic that I made to show the hypothetical land use for various options that were discussed and supported by the stakeholders in the project. The map is split into 6 areas of focus, and each area describes possible options for future land use of each section. So for example, the South Ranch is currently being used as rangeland, and Violet had discussed possibly using that area for sustainable agriculture. The yellow all around the map just visualizes that the entire area is desired to be placed under a conservation easement. A note on the wind farm, the actual location of the wind farm would be much farther out from the coastline, but it is depicted this way to show connection to the wind farm and the existing infrastructure. Another point is the safety buffers. So the lighter orange and the darker orange safety buffers were added to visualize how much of the land may have to be inaccessible to the public due to on-site nuclear storage.
This connectivity map collects the positions of stakeholders involved in the decommissioning of the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. So the diagram portrays the intentions of various groups for the Diablo Canyon land following the plant's decommissioning. So those in a rounded box are the involved stakeholders. We personally interviewed most of them, but those demarcated with an asterisk are represented with publicly published information. And outside groups are those demarcated with smaller text and connected by a dashed line. And finally, the intended outcome for the land is circled and larger or smaller depending on how many stakeholders agreed on the point. The outcome is organized on a scale from more development on the left to less or no development on the right, and separated from top to bottom by physical location, ranging from inland property to coastal to power plant.
Okay, to conclude, we encourage each of you to consider this very complex living nature of our project. We want to emphasize that we are striving for an adjustable graphic form of communication intended for the public to begin to understand the complexities and competing interests of everyone involved. We wish to inspire people to get involved in the decision-making process and to foster dialogue amongst one another. This project not only serves to encourage public engagement regarding the decommissioning of Diablo Canyon, but also acts as a precedent project for other large-scale controversial issues. With that being said, we humbly ask for any feedback, suggestions, and amendments to these living documents. Thank you, and please feel free to turn your video and audio back on.